little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the snout. And so I don't have a particular amount for the snout. I know that the snout, when I look at it, is relatively small. It's 1 pinch pot. So I'm going to grab a chunk of clay, and if it's too much, I'll make another one that's smaller. If it's not big enough, I'll make another one that's bigger. Okay, so this is very difficult to wedge, so I'm going to just kind of squeeze it into my hand and roll it into a ball. And from the front of the thing, it's a pretty round pinch pot. Okay, so my thumb is kind of big. I can use that. I could also try using a finger, but I think my thumb will work. More just kind of squeezing it, pinching it around my thumb this time, rather than driving my thumb all the way down into the bottom of it. Now, I was thinking I'd have its mouth open, so that'll be something that I'm going to experiment with. All right, so thickness seems about right on this. If this is the front here, my snout would be about there like that. So just once again, I'm going to give you some reference. So in my picture, the circle came pretty much up to the center of its head, and then it went all the way down to the bottom here. And then of course from there it projects out. And you can see here the profile, it kind of comes even, almost, not quite, but even with the bottom, and it comes up to the center there. Well, now, so the way that I'm going to do this to kind of help me get everything aligned is I'm going to just draw a line around the pinch pot here. So I know right where that pinch pot goes. So I'm going to go ahead and start by scoring this. I think my fork is too big for this, so I'm going to score it with my paper clip. And I can't stress enough, if you don't do this, things will fall off. Even sometimes when you do this, things will fall off. There's a lot of different factors involved in all of this. And so make sure that you're definitely doing things the way you're supposed to do them. Also keeping in mind that your clay needs to be moist to leather hard when you attach things. If you attach them and something is very dry, that does not want to stay on once it's all put together, and then it begins to dry out. It'll fall apart. Okay, so both have been scored pretty well. I grab my popsicle stick and some slip. Attach that all the way around there. Okay. And then this is the top here, so this is going to go here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off to attach them together well. So I've scored and I've added slip. I'm going to weld them now. So I'm not pushing in any one spot. I'm trying to support all the way around. I'm kind of twisting gently as I'm putting some pressure back and forth to where I feel like it's got a good seal. And now I'm going to take a tool and I'm going to go ahead and begin welding it together. So one of the tools I found for myself was a chopstick, and this has a rounded edge. So I could use my popsicle stick for this. Of course, I got to clean the slip off of that. I could use this in here and that'll work, but the chopstick, the roundness, will kind of help seal this together, kind of like my finger, but a lot smaller. It's doing a very nice job, actually. That was the bottom there. Now it's sticking out further now. We'll fix that in a minute. That's what it looks like from the side. So just like I did for the snout, I'm going to leave that in place. I'm going to draw a little line where I'm going to score. So I'll score both of these. Now I'm going to try to make it so that this whole top and this whole piece is scored. So there's a big connection with all those. This is where the fork will come in really handy to use. This whole area good. I'm going to go a couple different directions. Now I don't feel like it's quite deep enough as well, so I'm going to add the paper clip in there. Add some deeper spots. Okay, that's good there on that one. Just lay that there. You can see that hopefully. And then we'll start with the paper or the fork on this one. I'm able to dig in a little bit better because it's flat on the table. Do a few spots that the fork didn't get. Okay, so you can see that's very well scored there. So this time I'm going to add the slip onto this surface. It's probably going to ooze out a little bit, but that's okay. We'll fix that as we go. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to just squish down all my scoring. And so I'm gonna just set this in place here like this, make sure the back lines up like I'm thinking, yep, it's there. So I'm gonna just really weld it in now, kind of just moving it back and forth. Put a little bit of pressure. If you need to from underneath, you can support it and you can put some pressure that way. And I can actually see my scoring all the way around there. So my scoring is a little bit bigger than what I did, but I'm gonna add a coil of clay to kind of help these areas blend into each other. Okay, so I'm just working this in good. Seems pretty good to me now. All right, so looking pretty good so far. I'm gonna go ahead and make a coil now to add around that neck at this point, just to finish that up. So don't need a lot of clay. So basically I'm rolling out a worm or a snake. Now, I want this nice and moist, so I don't want it to get dry because it'll crack otherwise. So I'm just getting that nice and wet with my spray bottle. Okay, and then I know that this is long enough to go all the way around. With the scoring of this one, I'm only scoring the top because that's what's going to be turned and wrapped around it. So I'm using the fork, it's a little bit easier for me. And then going around it, I can see some scoring, but I'm gonna just double check all the way around with my paper clip. I've got some extra scoring going on. Now, this will become one with the piece. We're gonna really blend it in well so that if there's a little spot that doesn't have something, it'll be fine because it'll be sealed up good. So now what I'm gonna do, so with this one, I'm not gonna add slip. There is a little bit of slip oozing around there. I'm gonna add a little more water to this. And then when I blend this soft clay to the soft clay, it'll definitely stay on. So basically it's making its own slip by doing it this way. So I'm gonna put this coil in there. So I'm just sealing these up now, making them one piece. All right, so that's on that side. So now I'm gonna go around the other way. So this blending of the clay, this is also welding of the clay. It's really connecting everything together, making it solid. The pressure is helping, squeeze out any air that may be in there and just sealing the two together. All right. Pretty good so far. All right, so I'm gonna flatten out the top a little bit more. Okay. All right, so the ears are something I need to think about a little bit more. I do know with my eyes, the way I looked at them was I wanted to do kind of like those round puppy dog eyes, and they're kind of just right above the snout on each side. I also want to do a little spot for the nose there on the end of it. And even though my dog's nose doesn't necessarily stick out, I'm gonna make it stick out to make it look just a little more interesting, exciting. Okay, so I've got my little nose that I made. Want it a little flat on top and kind of down in the middle there like that. There we go. Even though my dog looks nothing like Snoopy, I always think that my dog looks like Snoopy, and that looks like Snoopy to me. I could be making Snoopy. Cool. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach the nose. Just gonna make a little mark at the top, and then I'm gonna score with the paper clip. Score the back side with the paper clip. Plus this clay is very moist, so I don't think it'll have any problems staying together if I follow my steps well. All right, so I kind of lost which was the flat side. I think this was it, but I'm gonna reshape it once I get it on there good. So I'm welding it in, so I scored, I added some slip, and I'm welding the nose on there. I'm gonna flatten the top out a little bit at the same time. All right. All right, so on the eyes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dent in my clay a little bit. And so I'm gonna use the tongue depressor, I think, to dent it in. So if this is the center, so in my picture, the eyes are kind of wide, think the center there, they're gonna come out on each side, and then there'll be little circles in there. So I'm gonna create a dent on each side about like this. And then my dog's eyes are pretty set in, so I could carve them in there, but I think I'm gonna try using a small ball of clay, and then I'm gonna flatten it. I wanna make sure it's big enough. She does not have little beady eyes, she has big puppy dog eyes. And I'll do some eyes like that. Alrighty. Pretty close. So once again, I'm going to score. So I think all in all, this animal head is going to take about 1 pound of clay, which would mean I'll have 1 pound of clay left after this to make whatever I want. Let's stick this one on there. Now that's not on there, it's just stuck on for the moment. We'll weld it in. All right, so now I need to turn this so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna work it in. Now this got a nice, connection on the whole backside. Now I don't want to lose the definition of the eye, so I'm just working it in, and I'm pushing down on the edges a little bit more so that it's attached well all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to take this here and kind of move it in a little bit. Okay, so I just dented in the middle, not super hard, but enough to make some definition to where it stands out a little bit. So I'm kind of moving it around because it's not quite big enough by itself. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, so one of the other things is I would not recommend making whiskers that stick out on your cat or your dog, even though they probably have whiskers. That's too thin, they'll end up breaking off. You can scratch them in the face, but then that doesn't usually look right. On this one, I made the essence of whiskers by poking little holes with something like a pencil, like 3 on each side. So if you wanted to do that, you could. But whiskers never seem to work out well on a little clay puppy dog or cat. They either break off or they just don't look right. Now this is getting a little dry, so I'm gonna spritz just a little bit. I don't want it sopping wet, but I don't want it to get too dry yet.